All right. Welcome to the Blue Falcon podcast. I'm Bobby Stegall, and today I'm joined with. We're good. We're green now on the left stream, by the way.
We're green. Oh, we're going.
We're
Okay,
going.
if you say so.
Yeah, if I say so. So this is the Blue Falcon podcast, and believe it or not, sometimes I'm blessed with some serious influencers and people that are just so far outside of my intellectual bubble that my intelligence is going to be on display here today, and it's not going to be impressive. But I'd love to welcome Dr. Joey Wolverton, author of The Founder's Recipe,
There you go. Yep.
and Doctor. You have to go by Joey.
No,
I'll go,
just call me Joey. Yeah.
all right, I'll go ahead and let you tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm gonna transition to a full screen of you, so don't
Okay.
worry too much. If you got any zits or anything like that, don't worry about it. You're good.
I don't
So,
have any, man. I'm flawless skin.
you
I'm
know what?
good.
I believe
Um,
that.
Genetic superiority. No. So I'm from Memphis, Tennessee originally. When I was about 5, my father joined the army, and just before my 7th birthday, we moved to Europe, where I pretty much grew up moving around. My dad had a crazy job where he would follow Russian spies around Western Europe, and so we lived in a lot of places growing up. We lived in Germany and France and Holland and Belgium and Switzerland and Austria and man, I can't even remember Luxembourg for a while. But anyway, I ended up uh, graduating high school in Frankfurt, Germany. Went to college, got my bachelor's degree in political science with an emphasis on the early republic. While I was in college, I was the first person on either side of my family to go to college. And when I went to college and I started taking these classes, I was way in over my head. I assume it was because of having gone to high school in Europe that a lot of these things that were taught in American high schools, the Federalist Papers and things like that, were not taught in my high school because it was an international school. And so anyway, I went to one of my favorite professors and I told him that I just was going to quit college, but I appreciated what he did. And he told me, he's like, Joey, you're a smart kid. Why don't you try to catch up instead of quitting? Why don't you just try to catch up? So what I did was he gave me a copy of the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers, and he told me to go to the library, open the index of those books, and write down any name from those index that I didn't realize or didn't recognize, I should say. And I ended up writing down pretty much all of the names. And then he told me, all right, now go back to the library and find out what all these things are. Look it up, discover who these people and these places are that are unfamiliar to you. And I did that. And when I came back to him, there were names on this list that he said he was unfamiliar with. And so eventually what happened is I noticed that there were about 37 people that the founding fathers referred to repeatedly, uh, to the point where some of them were mentioned various times in the Federalist Papers, in their letters to each other, particularly the letters of Madison to Jefferson and vice versa, and the letters of Jefferson to Adams. And these people's names kept cropping up in quotes, and I'd never heard of any of them. So I set about making myself a goal of reading all of these books that the founding fathers read, hoping, the idea being that, I would catch up and maybe understand a bit more about the founding of our country if I did that, and know really what they were trying to do versus what some people say they were trying to do, or what they thought versus what somebody was trying to tell me they thought. And I went to law school at the University of Memphis. Then I practiced law for several years. And then I taught at university in Chattanooga. I taught law and political science and ended up writing for the New American Magazine, which led me to write for a bunch of magazines, which led me to be approached by the 10th Amendment Center, who wanted to put me on tour, going around the country along with Tom Woods and Jack Hunter. And the three of us toured around the country speaking on the concept of state sovereignty and how to restrain the federal government. And I ended up writing a biography of James Madison called The Real James Madison. and I ended up writing a book called What Degree of Madness, which is basically taking Federalist Number 46 by James Madison and telling people how we can use the sovereignty of the states to force the federal beast back inside its constitutional cage. And
That's yeah.
and then the founder's recipe became my sort of purpose for living, because it became that thing that people were so intrigued by reading selections from these men whose names, most of whom are unknown today, and it's my belief that they're unknown to us on purpose, because once the federal government began exercising control of the curriculum, the names of these men were purposefully erased, because the idea, and I believe, even though they're doing it for a despicable reason, I think they're right. The idea being that if we have a generation of Americans reading what the founders read, we might have another generation of Americans doing what the founders did, and that is kicking a tyrant out of government at the point of a weapon. And so they don't want Americans reading these ideas that got our founding fathers so riled up that they were willing to tar and feather people, that they were willing to burn down tax houses, they were willing to throw tea into the harbor, that they were willing to get up at 4:30 in the morning as 50 dairy farmers and face off against one of the world's most powerful professional armies.
At the time, it was the most powerful, correct?
Well, it was one of. I mean, there's
Okay.
a few that all were pretty powerful. But the point is, they certainly were not. They were certainly outmatched. These 50 dairy farmers standing in the Lexington Green, at dark 30 with their hunting rifles, and here come 900 English professional, well-trained soldiers, and the idea behind the founder's recipe is, if we can get these thoughts back in the heads of Americans, maybe we'll develop a little more of a sense of the value of liberty, the way our founders had a value on it.
Yeah, the value of liberty. I really like the way you I guess phrased that, because there is, I would say it's invaluable. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely fair. Yeah.
Going through this book, first off, I gotta brag on myself. I made a cool little tab. Those little things you get, like career fairs or whatever. I got
Look at you.
Got some tabs going on there.
You just write uptown. I just use the regular yellow Post-its.
Okay.
I gotta up my tab game.
Well, so the way this book is laid out is fascinating. Just how it's laid out. Not the content. The content's amazing. To me, the first thing that stuck out, though, was how the first page is, top 10 reasons for following the founder's recipe. So when it comes to, I'm stealing this from a friend, by the way. When it comes to telling a story, there has to be a purpose of someone wanting to hear it or read it. And you lay that out perfectly, along with the rest of the 34 first pages, or first 34 pages. Like there's a challenge in here. So where did you get all these ideas? Like, these are just great ideas. I've never seen a book written like this.
I don't know, man. I mean, where I got it is my mind, but the idea was that someone could get this, and rather than it just being another pretty book, or I wanted it to look attractive. I wanted the color and the layout to be attractive, but I wanted it to be something that someone could genuinely use, something akin to a textbook without being a textbook. And I thought, if we can put it in the hands of people who might be genuinely motivated to learn, as opposed to, there's reading and then there's reading to learn. And I thought, if I put these little challenges in there, and if I make it visually appealing, then people might actually read some of it. And I'll tell you, when people ask, what should I read first? I tell everybody the same thing. Flip through it, find something that interests you, and read it. It's not in chronological order. It's in the order of how often those names appear in the writings of the founding generation. But I just tell people, look for something that interests you and read it. That's pretty much it.
My favorite so far is the quotes on the relationship of virtue to liberty.
Yeah,
Can I read my favorite one so far?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's do it, man. Read it.
This actually stuck out to Shelly, my girlfriend. You're flipping through this, and there's all these quotes, and this one just, maybe it's because it's short. It kind of catches the eye at first, and it's from Benjamin Franklin.
I can believe it.
Right? Benjamin Franklin says, "Laws without morals are in vain," and that's actually the motto of the University of Pennsylvania. But it's a concept that is so simple, yet it talks about a complex situation. So if you have laws, the more laws you write, okay, cool. But if there are no morals behind your society, or there's no foundation of what this, these people that are gathered in this one place together, that they all agree on, like, okay, this isn't cool, like, don't do this, then you can make as many laws as you want to. But if it's not accepted as right or wrong, then it won't matter.
Well, exactly, Bobby. And you're describing the problem in our country, the United States today. We have, 330 million people. And how many of us agree on what is right and what is wrong? Very few of us anymore, comparatively, And that's the problem. And that's the problem that the founders recognized when they created the system they created under the Constitution. If you read Federalist 45, 46, 39, you see that Madison saying, do not consolidate these 13 sovereign republics into one big country, because if you do, you are going to end up destroying liberty. That you cannot have one government setting laws for 13 distinct republics.
I can't believe I just got that. That makes total perfect sense, because regionally, I mean, they're coming from Europe, right?
Yeah, right.
And there's a reason why Europe's not one big country.
Yeah.
And
why that's why a lot of people, me included, have such an issue with something like the United Nations. A global government will be exponentially worse than even a national government, right? You take the federal government and its inability, for example, you've got something like the Environmental Protection Agency, that the water regulations for where I live in Arizona are the same as for where you live in Tennessee. And Tennessee, famously the greenest state in the land of the free, yes, where sir. Arizona is a desert. But we have the same water regulations because of this overarching tyrannical government. That makes no sense. And the founders, everybody always asks me, what would the founders, if they showed up here, what would they do? They'd get right back on that time machine and get out. Because they would not recognize this place.
What in the hell did y'all do?
Yeah, they're like, what? They're like, what? Yeah, it's like, seriously, it's like George Washington. You've probably seen it. There's this I think I put it on TikTok one time and people freaked out, but there's this famous meme. George Washington's like, yeah, me and my homies would have been stacking bodies by now. And it's just true. They would get off, they'd see a bunch of 40-year-old men playing Call of Duty, and they'd be like, hey, fire this up, we're going back. Let's get out of here.
These people are hopeless, right? And I think at their age they would have, but there's this problem that I see with the older generation. Here we go with the generational war, right? Trying to break everybody down into age, sex, religion, age, anyway. But the fact of the matter of this point I'm trying to make is the older generation is doing a really terrible job right now of motivating young people. You have to give people hope. And I think that's, I read one of the quotes in here, somewhere in this, about the meaning of hope. And the delivery of hope has to be from people who have been through things. Like a child has to look at his parents and say, "We're gonna get through this thunderstorm, right? Like this thing's crazy outside. It's you guys live through this, and you know your parents, yeah, man, you're good. You should have been there when the tornado came through. You know, I grew up in Oklahoma, by the way, so that's why that reference is so quick to my memory. Like you guys lived through the tornadoes. This shit's crazy. But when I look around, I see what I heard as a kid, but I didn't hear it that much. But I hear it all the time right now, especially because of social media, is there's no hope for the future generation. America's lost. Give up now. It's the end of the world. Jesus is coming tomorrow. You better make sure your sins are done. The economy's crashing. Everything's under somebody else's control. You have no hope. Just give up. There's no point in life. And as you probably feel how I do when I hear that, I'm like, shit, dude. That is not the answer. If you want to give up, if you want to clock out, hey, by all means, but keep that shit to yourself, because I'm trying to do some stuff over here and I'm trying to motivate people. So if you want to take your humbug, negative Nancy shit, get the fuck out of here. Sorry, that's how I feel.
Well, it's no. That's, and you're absolutely right. It's like my dad used to, being in the Army, his thing was always lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I think that's accurate. There are leaders, there are followers. And the rest of y'all who think that everything's lost and that there's no getting back, just stay at home, turn on your Xbox, and leave those of us who think there's something to do, leave us to get it done. I'm not, I have no patience. I have no patience for pansy patriots who sit on Facebook and type out their little stuff and they expend their testosterone by killing little digital men on their 5 screens where they're, sending out their Twitch signal to 5 people. I'm like, get up, get yourself educated, show that you're a man. Do something, man. The word virtue, Bobby, virtue is an English word that comes from a Latin word, virtu, meaning manly. It means
I did not know that.
Manly. So, yeah, virtu. It's like where we get the word virile, V-I-R. V-I-R in Latin means man, and virtu means manly. So I have no patience for these people who feel that they've done something good for the cause of the Constitution or for liberty or for justice by, getting on and typing, Biden sucks. Well, you know what? Anybody, well, I mean, anybody can see that that's true. I mean, Joe Biden's wife knows.
And skunks stink. Skunks stink, in case anybody doesn't know.
Right, exactly. So the thing that people are always like, well, what's the first on TikTok? I swear I get, just thousands of comments, and people are like, what's the first thing we need to do? I'm like, the first thing you do is get educated, because you don't know what you're defending. To be quite honest, I mean, you can, and it's nothing that anybody can understand. If I can understand it, dude, I'm no, exceptionally bright person. I'm just a guy who decided I want to do what the founders did, and I'm not one of those people who think, James Madison was born with a stamp on his butt that said future founding father. His parents raised him right. His parents raised him right. And so we have the obligation, you and I and many generations before us were taught lies and were taught half truths. But we live in an era now, Bobby, where we don't have to put up with that. And that's principally, why I wrote the Founders Recipes. I'm like, look, I don't expect people to go out and spend, thousands of dollars buying these books. But you can buy this one book and at least get a little taste for the radical way that our fathers believe. Because that's what some people, they see me do these videos and they're like, dude, pump the brakes. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to pump. If anything, I'm ripping the brake, out of the car.
Yeah, I'm already on emergency brake, man. The emergency handle's already pulled.
Yeah, we're Tokyo drifting this business from now on.
I love it. And I will admit that I considered myself. Well, I'll just say I'm really smart, dude, and so everybody knows that I'm really smart.
Well,
and it's important to think you're smart, and I'm smart enough to know I'm dumb about a lot of things.
Well, yeah.
And I didn't realize how I've had a lot of history classes. We all have. And it blew my mind that, I mean, like I said, the first 34 pages, like I'm going to have to reread them because I had no concept of how much I missed out on. Like these quotes, for instance, like these quotes should be, pretty well known. And, one of them is even the one I read from not George Washington, but from Ben Franklin, is the motto of the University of Pennsylvania. And I've never even heard that before.
Right.
So I think that's a start. And in order to, well, back to what we were saying earlier, everyone who's getting on Facebook, TikTok, and, I was guilty of it, and I'm still guilty of it. I try to put a spin on it if I try to do some kind of like Joe's an idiot thing, or, some of the politicians making a goof. Like I try to put some kind of funny spin on it because we got to laugh about things at some point. Laughter is a good medicine. But I don't think I saw it coming where so many friends that I have made on, I say acquaintances that I've made on social media, they're really defending Trump and what we all thought, Trump stood for. And I'll get behind the America First thing. I mean, I'll always believe that. I think you're crazy if you don't. Yeah. And if I lived in England, I'd be England first, what?
Right.
But these people were so adamant about Trump and America and us coming together. And son of a bitch, as soon as Biden's in office, now all these dudes are doing is being negative, just like the people they were complaining about Joe. And I'm looking at them like, you spent how much time making that video, you idiot? You probably spent an hour.
One thing that and that's the thing that I, try to tell people, don't come to my channel on TikTok if you're looking for politics, but I will give you a historical lens through which you can look at politics if you want to. But one of the things that I often tell people is if you get in the book here and you turn to the section on John Trenchard and Thomas Gordon, I don't know, it's they're one of the top 10 in page 89. And I tell people this all the time. If you start at page 89 and you read everything in the Trenchard and Gordon section, if you are not fired up and ready to just take that, there you go. Yeah. So if you can read everything in that Trenchard and Gordon section, starts on page 89, and you don't get fired up, then me and you don't have a lot in common.
Really?
Because these guys,
that's a test.
They're savage. They are savage with their stuff. They're the ones who say, look, this is one of my favorite things they say. They say, you know how politicians always want to get us involved in wars, and they're never fighting the wars. They're just sending the poor and middle class. And they say, if they're so bloodthirsty as they appear to be because they love starting wars, they essentially, now I'm going to put it in modern language, but what they say is, why don't we take Congress, the 535 members, the Senate and the House, and since they're so keen on killing, let's have a congressional Hunger Games. And they say that in their stuff. They say, let's put all these people and let's have them kill each other. And then the last one, they say, whoever's left, the rest of us get to hang him. I mean, it's... Yeah, and so
what we're talking about here, though, is the fact that they're sending other people's children to war.
Oh yeah. And even like Biden's proud of how his son supposedly whatever, but yeah, they're never the last. Look, all you need to know about that is the last American president who, while president, took active participation in any combat was James Madison in the War of 1812.
That's pretty far back. That's pretty far back.
Yeah, ever since then, it's just been people just sending other people's sons to die.
Can you tell us more of who John Trenchard and Thomas Gordon are? I'm sorry, I just realized that.
Man, I wish
I didn't know who they were, but
I wish I could tell you a lot more. That they were very secretive guys. They were a British guy and a Scottish guy. Trenchard Trenchard was 32 years older than Gordon. He hired Thomas Gordon to be sort of his secretary to write down all the things that he would publish, and he noticed that Gordon had a particular flair for writing, and so they became writing partners, writing under the name Cato, the Roman Cato, Cato. And so their letters are called Cato's letters, and they were published every week in a London newspaper. And they were basically letters to the editor, just savagery, just straight anti-tyrannical brutality, to the point where people would write, and they even have a letter in their book where they're, the collected letters, where they're like, people tell us to calm down. If anything, we need to get more brutal, more savage. And so what ended up happening, John Trenchard died, and on his deathbed, he asked Thomas Gordon to marry his widow, which Thomas Gordon did.
Wow.
And so, yeah, they were very close friends, and their whole point, it's so much to talk about, Bobby, but in England, they had this thing called the South Sea Company. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole history of the South Sea Company. All you need to know is it was essentially the early 18th century version of the Federal Reserve. The Bank of England essentially gave power to this private company to control the economy of England, including the currency, any monetary policy. Well, that got Trenchard and Gordon going crazy.
Yep.
And if you read their stuff today, and whenever they say South Sea, just replace it with the words Federal Reserve, and it's the same thing.
Make a note of that right now. A good thing there's a page for you to have notes at the end of each section.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. I'm really impressed by how this book's written.
Same reason.
I'm just really impressed by this.
Thanks, man. It was written by a really, really bright guy. No, I'm just teasing.
So it's called the South Seaside, or South Sea.
The South Sea Project or South Sea Company. Okay. Yeah, it's called any of those things. The South Sea Company, and yeah, it was the king giving to his friends a certain number of very wealthy families control over the monetary policy of England. And so whenever you read their stuff and it talks about the South Sea Company, you can just replace it with the words Federal Reserve because it's exactly the same thing.
Okay. Man.
But
that's great.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. I want to say this about it because I love that, people buy the book and that they, work through it. It's not something, I hope they don't think it's like chicken soup for the patriot soul or something. It's definitely not that. It's difficult to get through, but it's the sort of stuff you have to get through if you want to understand not just what the Constitution says or what the Declaration says, but why it says the things that they say. Why did Jefferson write life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Where did he get that idea? Why did the founding fathers say that the secret to a lasting republic is a well-ordered militia? Why did they say that? Why? Just all of the things that they put in the Constitution Declaration, you can find the answer, the source material in this book. But I will tell you one thing, and it's going to sound self-serving, and admittedly it's a bit self-serving, but at the end of the day, I just wish people would do it so that we could really move the needle back toward where we need to be. And on my website, the amargigroup.com, which is the one that same name as the TikTok channel, if you go to amargigroup.com, there's a tab that says courses, I believe. And if you go under there, I sell 38 videos, on-demand videos, 38 of them, that go in great detail about each one of these men whose selections are in this book. So you could kind of take this book and you could buy those videos and it explains it in depth. So it's like having me sit down and discuss Samuel Pufendorf. He's a top 10 influence on the founding fathers. No one's ever heard of it.
All right, walk us through this. Sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Oh, man, I tried to bring up the website. Just kidding.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry, okay.
Just kidding. Joke. Well, if you go to the website Amargi Group, it's AMARGI group.com, and you click on courses, you'll see a course there called The Founder's Recipe, and it's me. The first two videos are me sort of introducing. It's like the first 37 pages, basically, like you talked about,
Okay.
and the other 36 videos are me spending about 45 minutes to an hour going through the selections with you, just sitting here and discussing them with you, bringing out points that maybe you wouldn't see because you don't have as much experience reading this stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, it is self-serving, and that is what it is. We all have to keep the lights on and pay for
Hey, that's the beautiful thing about
keeping the
capitalism.
women.
I
Hey,
have a talent, and I hope I get paid for it, so I can put food on my table, and hopefully you buy it so you can benefit from it.
yeah, and I think that's the good thing. Yes, I will benefit, but so will our country. If we could get a generation of young Americans who could stand up and say, "Here's the line. The federal government goes no farther," the same way that our founding fathers did. And we can do what they did if we read what they read, Bobby. It's not magic. That's why I call it the recipe, right? And you probably read it in the beginning of the book. The way I got the idea for the title was my dad loved my grandma's banana pudding, but he would only eat it. He would only eat it when we went to visit my grandma. And so one day I remember I was a little kid and I'm like, "Dad, why don't you just have mom make the banana pudding at home?" And he's like, "Because your mom's ain't as good as your grandma." And so my mom said, "Well, I can get the recipe and try." And sure enough, it wasn't exactly, but it was pretty close.
Right.
And so that's where I got the idea for this book. If we read the same things that our founders read, we may not become James Madison or George Washington, but we can get closer than we are today.
So it's all about momentum, correct?
Yes. Trajectory. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to take some screenshots of this because it's really important. I've noticed for people to be able to visually see websites in order to possibly
Okay.
go look at them instead of just not showing them what it looks like. So let me put this in here. I'm going to cut out of my screen so it doesn't, so I don't look so weird as I work here. I'm going to cut to yours. I would love you to explain how the founding fathers, all the letters and things that they wrote, or I guess in general, everyone back then, there wasn't any actual punctuation. That fascinated me in this book. We hit on that?
Yeah. So we didn't have standardized punctuation or standardized spelling until a good, almost 100 years after the War for Independence. So my idea was I could have cleaned up the spelling and cleaned up the punctuation and all of this, but I preferred to have people see the words the way the founders saw them. And I thought it might make you more familiar with that sort of writing. That way, when you go on your own, because what I say in here, this is just like when you go to Baskin Robbins and they give you that little spoon for you to taste all the flavors. This is just me. Yeah, this book is just me giving you a little taste of all these 36 books, right? This is just a little taste. I would prefer it if people maybe they fall in love like I did with Algernon Sidney because of how brilliant he is and how brutal he is, and they fall in love with Sidney rather than just relying on the 5 or 6 pages that I include in this book from Sidney's discourses. They go out and read it. Well, if they're accustomed to seeing that there was no standardized spelling and no standardized punctuation, it'll be a bit easier for them when they go out and read more from these authors on their own, something they might find at the library or something like that. It'll be easier for them to understand. And that's why I left the punctuation and spelling the way it was when the founding fathers read it.
I love it. Can you
and so you have,
keep talking
you have
for like 2 more minutes?
You have random. Yeah. Oh, of course. Keep talking for 2 more minutes, brother. I can fill it up. Yeah. So you'll notice in the book, for example, people will say, "Hey, you capitalized the word state when it shouldn't have been No, I didn't do any of this. So that's the thing you should know. Well, people will say, you're supposed to be so smart, and yet you left these random capitals, or you put a comma here. Whereas I didn't do that. I just took literally exactly the way these texts were when the founders read them and put them in this book. And the idea being that I want you to get familiar with the way things were written and punctuated at the time of the founding, so that if you go out and you decide, I want to read all of Algernon Sidney's book, it'll be familiar to you by that time, and you'll get a lot more out of it, because it won't seem so strange to you. And so, yeah, this isn't Joey not knowing how to capitalize or how to, and I also left the spelling. So the British spelling with the U, like in colors and neighbors, I left the British spelling in there. So despite what people in TikTok think, I actually can spell, and I do know how to use capitalization. But they'll get on here and they'll be like, "Hey man, I was on page 100 in your book and you capitalized whatever word." And I'm like, "Hey man, I just put that in there the way the author did it." I'm like, I'm not nearly so dumb as I sound. I mean,
I'm not as dumb as you wish I was. That's actually what's going on there. Is that they wish you were dumber.
Yeah.
They're trying to find some kind of fault with you,
Yeah. Yeah. I tell someone, I told this guy, if you were half as clever as you think you are, you'd be twice as clever as you actually are.
Did his brain blow up?
It was a lot of math, and I think he just bailed out. So
fair enough. Well, I finally have those graphics in here. These are just screenshots from the website. So let's go ahead and pull those up.
Yeah.
So this is the website. Whenever you come to the landing page, I believe, and then I clicked on courses, and this is AMARGI group.com.
.com. And I'll just tell you real quick, Amargi, that's the oldest known word for liberty that we know of. That was a word found on a tablet written in cuneiform, and it means liberty. And so that's where I got it from. That's the oldest known word for the concept of liberty. And so that's why I used it. And
can you say it one more time? I'm trying to figure out how to...
It's Amargi.
Amargi.
Yeah, Amargi. Yeah, Amargi. And etymologically, for the Akkadians, Amargi etymologically means return to mother. So in their mind, one became truly free when one was at home, because in those days, mom was at home. Dad was out doing business, right, and mom was at home. So I kind of fused those two things together, because I wanted the idea, first of all, of liberty, but I wanted the idea also that liberty, a love of liberty, the understanding of liberty, begins at home. And so if we can get those concepts and have people understand, you don't need to go to college to understand this. You don't need some letters after your name to understand this. You can get this book, and if you go to the website, now a lot of people can just understand it just like it is. But I know there are people, I have several that have purchased the class, the Founder's Recipe class, and that they really appreciate the videos, because I go through the selections with you and maybe explain some things that might not have occurred to you.
Like a teacher.
And you can watch, like a teacher, right? Like a teacher. Yeah, like a teacher. I'm sitting here trying to think of the word, and Bobby's like,
I know,
like a teacher.
I know. I can see. I can see you trying to figure it out. I was like, that's a teacher.
And I know. I had to. Yeah, like a teacher. And I know another thing that's happening right now, and I know my wife's hearing it, and she's like, "This does not sound like Joey's regular voice." Whenever I talk to someone from back home, my Memphis accent comes out again, and I guarantee my wife, she's like, I have never heard you talk like this, man. And it's like, well, she has heard it maybe, but only when I'm talking to someone from back home. And it's like, do you know? And she says it, and I normally don't notice it, but right now I was just hearing it, and I'm like, Man, you sound like you're back home again. Yeah, exactly.
Happens to me too. Let's go to that website real fast. And the things that are the check
Yeah.
marks. I wasn't able to really get a good screenshot of that. Can you kind of walk us through those check bullet points real quick?
Yeah, so they have every week you'll have, so I've broken it down where you can do one a week, right? One of the actually let me pull it up here because yours is kind of blurry. And if
Yes.
I pull it up here real quick, I'll be able to see it better.
Okay.
Uh yeah, let me look at it here. It'll be easier for me. And I'll just click on courses. Yeah. So courses, where are we, Joey? There we go. All right, yeah. So the check marks. So there's 38. It says over 36. So the idea is, yeah, there we go. So the idea is that there's one video. You do one of these guys a week. And the reason I did that, now they're all up there and available. But the reason that I said, do one of them a week is because some of this stuff is really dense. And
Mm.
I don't want you just to skim over it. I had a professor that used to say, there should be, when you read something difficult, people are too inclined to have what he called be a Teflon reader. And so what would
Yep.
happen is you'd see a word and you just let it slide off your mind rather than understanding what it means. Right. And so he said, this professor taught me, don't be a Teflon reader. If there's a word you don't understand, find out what it means because it might hold the key to understanding all of it. And
Mm.
so what I have on these videos is, going through and teaching you, there you go, there's that word, teaching you different things in this that might be unfamiliar. Private face group access. So I have a private Facebook group where people that are enrolled that have purchased the videos, they can come and they can, send me questions over Facebook if they want to. And then every Thursday at, oh, blimey, I'm about to forget. Every Thursday at 7 Pacific, I have a 1 hour live via Zoom Q&A for everybody that's purchased the videos. And so what happens is these people get on and they say, hey, I was reading Pufendorf and I really didn't understand what he was saying about what it means to be voluntarily ignorant. And
Hmm.
so I have an hour with all of these people and I just take their questions and they all have their books out and they're just peppering me with questions about this. And so you have that lifetime access. Yeah, once you've bought the videos, they're yours. It's not like you get them for a year and then it expires.
That'd be messed up.
30-minute. Yeah, well, some places do that. Some places really do that. So anyway, 30-minute. The shortest one is 30 minutes, and the longest one, a couple of them are well over an hour. Peace of mind that your child is learning good and true principles. Yeah, that's another thing. Rather than it just being me talking about things I believe or the way I see things, I try to divorce myself from the process in the sense that I want these writers, the men that the founders read, I want them to speak for themselves. I don't want this to be Joey's blog that you're just going to get on here and you're going to hear me rant. I mean, because that's what ends up also, and it's a great lack I found as I researched who was having these history things available. No one has this founder's recipe type thing. Like literally, no one has this. But in the American history sort of lessons and teachers and stuff on YouTube, I noticed that so often it's just the person's vlog, sort of roughly or vaguely, behind a thin veil of history.
Right.
And then we've got, what is it?
The last one is, I think, the most important.
Inspiration. Yeah, inspiration to make your life and world a better, freer place. And ultimately, that's what it is. The thing that I like best that's happened on TikTok is I've got so many people that send me messages on TikTok or end up sending me email through the website who've said, "Hey, I've got together with some people in my neighborhood and we're talking about this thing and we're going to go down to the next city council meeting and push back against whatever regulation they're trying to push." And I love I had a family, they took pictures of themselves at a rally and they're like,
Wow.
this is my first political rally and I went because of your videos. And man, if we can just, like you say, if we can just move the needle a little bit, man. I'm not talking about a touchdown, but how about we make a first down now and then, you know? And so that's what I'm looking to help people do is I'm not expecting us to wake up in the morning and be free the way our fathers were free. But I would like, you know, for every time we touch the ball to get a couple of yards, you know, and to eventually make a first down and get that, eventually get that goal of saying we have restrained, you know, we have taken these states and the people and we have forced the federal beast back inside his constitutional cage. And once we get that done, I guarantee you, and not just me, but you read these people and you read the writings of the founders, our country will not only be freer, but it will certainly be more prosperous, right? Because as I say in the book, liberty, freedom, right, is the tide that lifts all boats. And the notion
Yes,
that you
sir.
can be free, and the only thing that should stand between, if I want to sell a book to Bobby, the only thing that should stand in between that is me and you. There should be no one deciding, do I have to have a certain price, and do I have to pay a certain price to have it printed? Freedom, man, makes us all so much richer and so much happier. As I say there, a happier existence. You know, freedom is dangerous, but I'm going to tell you, man, all of us want to grow up, right? When we're kids, I went
Oh,
to
we couldn't wait.
man, I went to college. Yeah, when I went to college, oh, good, man, it was off the chain. I mean, I'm embarrassed. I am embarrassed for how far I roamed from the path that my parents had set for me. But the point is, we want to do that. But then when we get adults, for some reason, we want people to take care of us again. And I don't want that. I want to have the experience of I'd rather have a dangerous liberty than a safe tyranny, you know?
Yeah. What's the definition of a safe tyranny? Safe for who?
Yeah. Well, safe what? Yeah, you probably have a place to live, and you might have good Wi-Fi signal, and you might even have food to eat, but you're at the complete control of somebody else. And not only that, but your life and your death depends on them. I mean, do you understand? We literally had a president who got up on stage and as coherently as his addled mind is able to do, he said, "Oh, if you want to take on the federal government, you need an F-15
Nuclear missiles.
and a nuke."
Are you out
Joe,
of your
here's
mind?
my message. Yeah, here's my message to you, Joe. Joe to Joe. Why don't you come on over here? Bring you and your octogenarian self, knock on my door. I will straight up open the door to you. And if you get my gun, son, then you deserve to have it. So let's make it happen. Quit being bold. Quit being bold behind, you know, snipers and behind walled off palaces.
Well, that's not a leader.
And no, it isn't. No, it
You
isn't.
know,
It's an
a leader doesn't
oligarch.
say that. It's an oligarch. Sorry, there's a delay here. There's like a one split second delay. Yeah, whenever I heard that, you know, people are laughing about it. People are like, oh, showing a picture of all their guns. You know, and they're like, hey, Joe, if you want our guns, if you think you're that stupid, you know, why don't you just come and get it? You know, like you said it differently. I know I'm kind of describing you right now, but these people are literally making videos on TikTok trying to I guess pump their chest up. And I think that they are missing the concept of why this is so bad. Whenever you're saying, come take my guns, literally you're saying, no, like, come take them. If you're going to say something like that as a man to man, right. If you said that into a microphone, would you say that to my face? I bet you wouldn't.
Right, exactly. No. Well, I don't think he could. I mean, he'd have to strain his neck to look up, first of all. And I don't know that straining his neck
pop
might set off his Alzheimer's. Yeah.
Yeah. Old Corn Pop. You know, Corn Pop is a bad dude. You've seen that video.
I'm yeah. Well, the point is that I'm just, gosh, I hate to say it this way, but I'm just really tired of a generation, even of conservatives, you know, of pansy patriots. I'm sick of it. You know, we like to have pictures on our wall. We like to have pictures on our wall of men who burned down tax houses. who tarred and feathered tyrants. We love talking about them. We love quoting them.
Mm-hmm.
But heaven forbid we ever go and do likewise, because that actually requires some guts. And it's easier to sit back and say, I'm a really powerful Call of Duty sniper, and I'm Overwatch, and I'm whatever.
Everybody's a sniper on Call of Duty, by the way. Everybody's
yeah,
a sniper.
well, see, you got me. I didn't even know that. So there you go.
Oh, everybody's like, hey, it reminds me of life. When you have four guys playing video games, and I'm guilty of it too. I enjoy it time to time. It's my release time. But there's four guys, and we're virtually, walking through this huge, battlegrounds, basically like a large city, is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to actually calculate how big it is, I think it's 2 miles or by 2 miles or 3 miles by 3 miles, which is a big area for 150 people to be running around.
Right.
And whenever we're walking along, there's always that one person who has to go first, and everyone else is always saying, "Oh, you guys go ahead. I got an Overwatch. I got your back. I'll be watching from back here." And I was in the Army, and that shit is not just on video games. There are things that are human nature that goes back to the masculinity and virtue. Is that how you say it?
Virtue, yeah, the manliness, yeah, virtue. Mm-hmm.
It goes back to that because naturally, some leaders are naturally born. And I'm going to say that that's a majority of them, or how they're raised. I'm not sure what that factor is.
Mm-hmm.
Some leaders are forged, and those are the ones that
mm-hmm.
I will move quickly aside to let them take lead. And I'm saying all that to say this: a lot of those men that we're talking about here, these pansy patriots, they need true leadership because they are followers, and that's just fine. There's going to be followers, so you have to have followers. And I think what they're following is what they think is popular, because the system that we're in right now has arranged itself to promote conservative. I'm going to stop saying conservative ideals. I hate that fucking word now. Sorry for my French. They have allowed us to think constitutionalism is posting on Facebook, "Don't tread on me." They've allowed us to think that you're a true patriot by having a support the blue hashtag. Well, when's the last time you walked up to an officer and said thank you for what you do, and shook his hand or bought him a donut? I know that. I mean, I love donuts. I didn't mean to make a cup joke there.
No, but I got you.
So I think that slowly we'll get there. And I have never pushed a book so hard on my podcast in the past 3 years. But I see this, and I prayed about it. I know that this book and your leadership can play a role to move that needle just a little bit. And I'm doing everything I can to help that influence broaden. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, sir. I appreciate what you say too. I have this, and my wife can back me up on this. I have this sort of, I don't know, residual Quaker sense of never wanting to point to myself and say that, follow me or anything. But I do wish people would, if they're prone to follow someone, that they would at least follow the founding fathers, which is what I always tell people. Like, yes, I'm out here doing this, and I appreciate you promoting the book and others doing that, and those on TikTok. I mean, I never dreamed. I don't know what I have, like 50-something thousand followers. I never dreamed that someone would do that.
Right.
And so I'm very grateful for them. And what I would say is, I'm fine with you following me, but you need to recognize that I'm following the great men who came before us, right? And you can, if you don't rely on, if you don't think you can trust Joe, you can trust James Madison, you can trust George Washington, and we're trusting the men that they trusted, And so I'm thankful for you and the things you say about it. I am thankful that whatever, however I was able to find these things, and it's changed my life. I'm not
That's
lying.
awesome.
That professor of mine from college that told me not to quit college, he
Man.
unfortunately passed away young. But I sent a message to his widow, and it's been, a few years since I was a freshman in college. But just recently, I sent a message to his widow telling her how much of my life I owe to her husband, because him putting me on this path. And people always say to me, like, how did you start with this? And I say, yeah, I started out what I call a good little Republican. I was raised in a military household. My father voted for, my father voted Republican, period.
Yeah.
That's just the way you did.
Yeah.
And and the problem was, I started to read these men and read what the founders said about them, and read what and that's the thing, Bobby. The reason I want people to have this book, the reason I wrote this book, is because I'm tired of after generation of American young people being forced to drink downstream. We live in an era, we don't have to do that, man.
It's beautiful.
You can go.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, man. Put your face down right there where that pure, clear, sweet water comes out of the ground, and you'll be surprised at how different you feel than when you're a mile downstream licking up water that horses and fish and whatever else have run through. Get yourself to the source, and it will make a difference, man. It will make a difference. And it made a difference to me to read these words and be like, I remember reading them and thinking, why was I never taught this?
Mm-hmm.
And that got me, and that taught me. I was never taught this on purpose. These people were removed from the curriculum on purpose. Because there's no way.
Can I offer an alternative theory on that?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that some of these pieces have not been purposefully removed. I would say that I guess I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. So I'm not good with my words like they are. Our founding fathers are. The idea of people, quote unquote, erasing history is real. What's more prevalent, I would say, is people promoting things that are of self-interest and leaving out things that are not. So it's not so much on a grand scale, maybe, of these things being replaced. I don't think that these people are that smart. I think that they only find things that make them look good, and that's a lot easier to do. And so throughout time, because things have gotten easier to push out, I mean, look at the media. As soon as the newspapers came out, guess who controlled Congress? The newspapers. Whenever the radio came out, same thing. Whenever TV came out, same thing. Internet, same thing. But the internet is very unique in the fact that we can create our own audience. We can create our own studio. We can literally make video, audio, and print all at the same time with one production. So kiss my ass to everybody who thinks that this is the end.
Yeah. Well, the other day, so I did a video about how Algernon Sidney says the laws of God and men makes it perfectly justified to kill a tyrant, that killing a tyrant is not murder, and that against a tyrant, every man is a soldier. And I made these videos because I love Algernon Sidney, our founding fathers. He was one of they couldn't stop talking about it. Madison and Jefferson said, if you don't read Sidney's discourses concerning government, you have no idea why we fought the revolution. I mean, they made it that clear.
Wow.
And so when I read him, and I did this video, and I put some little graphic that said, this is available in my book. Somebody put a comment on there and said, hey, he's just shilling for his book. You can find this book on the internet. And I was thinking, well, no, Sherlock, that's the whole point, man. I didn't discover this in some, ancient tomb buried in Egypt. I got on the Google machine and found it myself. It's like, but I think it's so funny. We're like, he's just trying to sell books. No, man. If I never sold another book and I woke up in 5 years and our country was back like it was supposed to be, a confederation of 50 sovereign republics with the federal government doing very little and the state governments and the people. I wouldn't care if I was living in a box under a bridge because I would, well, seriously,
Yeah, no, I
because
got you.
I would
Yeah.
know that at that point, I would know that the place that I lived was so free, I would have an opportunity to upgrade. I would have an opportunity to make myself prosperous.
There's so many things
And
going
that's
through my head right
ultimately the
now
goal.
of ideas and things I want to say, but uh, it's such a great conversation. I'm making notes mentally. I guess I should probably be writing these down because I'm going to have you back on the podcast. But one thing I
Sure.
skipped over later or earlier, I was talking about, or we were talking about, followers, and I guess let me rephrase that. So I'm still working on my vocabulary and my rhetoric when it comes to speaking, which is odd considering I've had a podcast for 3 years. But the only person I follow is God, and Jesus. So
There you go. I got you.
so whenever it comes to when I say follower, I mean I consider you a leader of in this realm of
Right.
the Founding Fathers recipe, because I have not found anybody who has amassed such a well thought out tool that can be used not to make me more free because I want freedom. I'm trying to help you, dumbass. I'm trying to help the guy over there who's complaining about the federal government doing this, federal government doing that. I'm like, hey, Mr. California, I agree. It is dumb, isn't it? Let's stick to that state thing. I got a book you should read, or whatever.
That's the whole. If you watched the other night when I did my live, I had these hats that I sell. This "Make America States Again," and the idea is if we can make America states again, then we can have the liberty that we're all looking for.
Yep. Make America the states again. Did you sell those on your website?
Yeah. I don't think so anymore. I think you can I think people just DM me now. But it looks like the Trump, but instead of great, it says states,
I love
make
that.
America states again. Yeah. But ultimately, what's that? That's Federalist 39, 45, 46, James Madison. That's not me I was clever and took it from the Trump thing. But the idea is,
right,
if you want to be a communist, go live with a bunch of communists and I don't care.
Yeah.
But just leave me to be in a place where people agree with how I want to live, and
the people I'm around, we live like
I'm talking about.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt. And the people we're around, right? Like leave our community alone. Let us be us. You guys want to make California a socialist state? Hey, man, as long as you got everything squared away with the federal government, have at it. All for it.
Yeah,
because that's your state's rights.
100%. There you go. 100%.
I don't know who can disagree with this idea. Like, it's so simple to me.
Well, when you think of it, but when you think about it, Bobby, the people that disagree with that idea are the people that want to control your life, because they know that in a state of in a United States with the government functioning the way it's supposed to, there are going to be a lot of people who are millionaires and billionaires now who have to actually work at something different than that. We don't have pure capitalism. We have crony capitalism, right? When you've got tax breaks, millions and millions in tax breaks. Bill Gates is as much a welfare cheat as anyone living in the inner city.
Really?
Period. Yeah.
Okay.
Period.
Explain.
He gets all these things. Well, because he participates. Through his influence in Congress, he gets certain programs where Amazon, a company that doesn't need it, will get hundreds of millions of dollars in grants from the federal government to do this, that, or the other. And so if we took away all of that and said, hey, I'm all about, man, if you work hard and people buy your stuff, I want you to have, if you want 20 houses and you want to ride around in a gold-plated car.
It looked like an asshole.
Smoking. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care at all. But I want us to have that playing field be level. And that's the way if we were to follow the Constitution as it is written, we would have that level playing field. And that's all I want. I want a market economy, you know, and that's another thing. If you read the people in this book, they all tell you government, the most notorious thing they do is put their thumb on the scale, right? They want one side or the other to be preferred. And so if we could get to a place where everybody's playing fair, then we wouldn't have to worry about what government is preferring, who they are preferring, and why. It's like I told the other day in a class I was teaching. Well, it's actually on the Q&A for the people who've subscribed to or who've bought the Founder's Recipe videos. I was explaining how this comes about. Well, the fraud comes about, and you've got someone like Nancy Pelosi. Let's say there's a federal job of repairing a bridge in California. And rather than just let everybody bid on that job is given to a construction company owned by Nancy Pelosi's brother-in-law.
Oh my gosh,
well,
that happens?
Yeah. And so exactly
all the time.
What?
All the time.
Yeah, right.
All the
and
time.
So, but imagine if, you know, Joe Sixpack, who's a really good construction company, was allowed to have an equal shot at that bid, but he isn't. But under a market economy, he would be. And if we could restrain, you know, like Thomas Jefferson said, when it comes to questions of power, trust no man, but chain him down with the chains of the Constitution. And that's what we need to do. We need to chain down these people so that they can't make brother-in-law deals, right? So that they can't get away with things that the rest of us would be arrested for.
Right. And I have no problem.
But we have the power.
And we do have the power. And against, you know, it's that needle idea. And I have no problem with Nancy Pelosi's brother getting the contract if that's the one that was if it was fair for everyone. Hey,
right.
that's a win-win for your family. Congratulations. You know what? It is what it is.
100% behind it.
This will really get you going. We got about, 10, 15 minutes left? How much more time do I have you for?
10 minutes, yep.
10 minutes, okay. You know what? I'll save the story for next time. Let's, I guess we'll kind of slowly wrap this thing up.
I was getting all ready for a story now, you know.
Well, it's way longer than 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. We'll do it next. I'll be back, man, as often as you want me to be back.
All right. Well, so we talked about this book a lot. Obviously, your website. Let's say that somebody doesn't have access to funds right now. Where's a good place to start for free?
A good place to start for free that I would go to, if you put in, there's two places. The first is the Online Library of Liberty. Just Google that phrase, the Online Library of Liberty. Google that phrase, and you'll see a link under there. And that website is maintained by Liberty Fund, a small company in Indiana that publishes in hard copy most of the books that I quote in my book. So Online Library of Liberty, and they have something under there called the Founding Fathers Library. Start there. The next place I would go, I would put in the following phrase in Google: Founders Constitution, Chicago. Now that sounds weird, but that's because the University of Chicago, along with the University of Virginia, have collected an enormous amount of documents that are keyed and collated to every clause in the Constitution. So if you just type in Google. Founders Constitution Chicago on Google, Founders Constitution Chicago, and you look, and it'll have a link under there that says Contents, and you will see the Constitution, all of the clauses and articles hyperlinked, and all the amendments hyperlinked with scores of documents explaining the history of that clause. So if you have no money and you don't want...
Right there. So just to hit on it again, onlinelibraryofliberty.com.
Mm-hmm. No, okay. I don't think it's .com. It might be, but if you just if you just Google Online Library of Liberty, the first link that comes up is them.
I was trying to impress you with my
And
graphics. So
oh no, you're fine. Did it? Oh, I got you down there. I see. It might be. I don't think that's the. I don't think that's what it is.
but yeah, just Google
Uh,
that and it'll pop up.
right. Online Library of Liberty, and the other one, Founders Constitution, Chicago, and
Okay.
then click where it says contents, and you'll be blown away. You'll be blown away with the stuff that's there, and that's 100% for free. And I'm telling it's a good place to start. My book and the classes that I offer about the book, I've priced them pretty low so that people can get in and get some of this in their head. But I do understand. I've been a guy that's had no funds before, for sure, and
Right.
so Online Library of Liberty and the Founders Constitution, man, you go there and you'll have days and weeks of things to read. And maybe when you get a little extra funds, you want to take these classes and have me. I mean, because I'm going to tell you, Bobby, it's not, like I say, it's self-serving a little bit, but I'm telling you, the transformation in the understanding of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence that happens when people read these authors and when people take these classes from me, it has astounded and shocked even me, because I see people whose lives change because suddenly they understand not only what is in the Constitution and what is in the Declaration, but they suddenly understand why those things were
Hmm.
put there, and it turns them in to a different kind of patriot, for sure. And that's what we need.
I could not agree more. And I'm looking at the prices for the founding fathers, the videos they were talking about.
Right.
What are these called?
Hmm.
The where you actually teach.
Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
video. Yeah, they're lessons. Yes, yeah,
All right.
lessons given by a teacher.
Right. The this price is I mean it's fair when it comes to if the level of knowledge that you want to have. So if I want to get ripped, which I don't right now, I just want to get unfat. That'd be great. I'll have to pay to go to a gym. I'm gonna have to pay for
Right, right.
maybe a gym coach or whatever. And people easily spend
Yeah.
$200 on a CrossFit gym a month or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And to me, this is an exercise of your brain to give you the tools necessary if you want change to understand how the founding fathers did it that first time. And so
Yeah,
I
I mean,
bought
I
the
agree.
book
If
for
you,
what I think like
there's,
$70, 70, $80
I think
online.
it's 60. It's
Oh,
60
60?
bucks. Yeah,
Okay.
60.
Um,
Hmm.
and so honestly, I was just so pumped after like watching your TikToks. I saw that you had a book. I was like, I'm buying it. Bam. And so I'm gonna read through this, and it's probably gonna take me honestly probably take me 6 months to read through
Hey,
this whole thing. But afterwards,
hey,
at
whatever
that
it
point,
takes, man.
yeah, and afterwards at that point, I'll decide, if I want to have the videos and the lectures and things more
Hmm.
involved, um, education from you and the Facebook group and all that,
Right,
because I could see where that would
right.
be like the next step for me. Like, okay, my biceps are this
Hmm.
big now. Let me see if I can, pump them
Right.
up a little more. All right, and so I think this is a great concept. It's
Yeah.
friendly to the budget. It's friendly to the digestive system, if you will, educational
Right.
digestive system, and I got to commend you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I tried really hard to, I'm not, if everybody, if, I'm not going to get rich selling these classes or these books. And I tried really hard with the pricing, particularly of the classes. I tried really hard to make it where anybody could afford it if they valued that sort of thing. I mean,
Right.
if you don't value the learning, you won't be interested. And so I needed to price it at a place where people know it's valuable.
Hmm.
But I did an installment plan, right? There's several of my students who take my classes who bought them. They do the monthly installment thing, or I think it's for 3 months or something. But anyway, I tried to make it where if people were really interested, they could afford it.
What is the? We got 2 minutes. Looks like here. What is the? Or what is some of the reviews from your students on not necessarily just your teaching, because I think you pretty much explained that you don't really get on there and it's not a Joey blog. But what are some things that have stood out to some of the people who are reading all this information and watching the videos and things like that?
I think the first thing is that they're astounded by what the founders knew that is completely unknown to us. I think that's what it's pouring this new wine, this old wine into new bottles, right? It's the idea that there's this learning that's been sitting here for hundreds of years that people today have no idea. And then when they read it, and in the book and in the classes, I show you where the founders have quoted these people, and they end up being astounded that they've never heard of these concepts. And when they do, they just get fired up. I mean, that's the end of it. The end of the day is they get fired up over so much new information, to be honest.
If you enjoy learning, you're really going to enjoy this book, just for the simple fact that it's so rich with those moments that I think people who enjoy learning have, and you're like, oh wow, that just blew my mind. I never thought about something like that, or I never looked at it from that perspective, or I didn't know that about history. And you kind of like feel better about yourself. It's like, wow, I can still learn.
Whoa. Well, you do. And it's one of those things that I tell people. It's like, that phrase in the Bible where it says it becomes every man who has been warned to warn his neighbor. And this is what I feel like I'm doing. I've learned this stuff, so I try to teach you, and then you go teach someone else. And eventually we'll be able to move the needle if just even a small percentage of us are working together toward that goal.
I agree. All right. Well, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to be reading this book. When can we get you back on the podcast, do you think?
Yeah, just send me a message and we'll make it happen, brother. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much. I'll leave you with the closing statements, and then I'll sign us off.
All right. Well, yeah, just margigroup.com, AMARGI group.com. Go there and look at the different classes that I offer and sign up for the Founder's Recipe book that Bobby's been talking about, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But to get a little taste of it, just go to my TikTok account, which is MRG Group. Go to my TikTok account, look at those videos, and that's a little free taste of the sort of things that I'm trying to help people understand and just restore the wisdom of the founding fathers, in the hope that if we read what they read, we might have the courage to do what they did, and that is to restore liberty to this country of ours.
All right. I love it. You can go ahead and sign off, Joe. I'll do my part on here. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, Bobby.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, sir. Okay. You have a good night.
Thank you, Joe. You too. And I'm going to pull up real quick his bear with me. I'm going to pull up his book so you guys can see what that looks like on the old Amazon. All right, I think this is it. Well, anyway, search Amazon. I tried to do that to where I could have his book there at the end. But thank you guys so much for joining the Blue Falcon podcast. It really means a lot to me, guys, that y'all support me. Please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, all that if you enjoyed this content. Please go check out Mr. or Dr. Wolverton, or Joey as he likes to be called. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you so much for all the work that you've put into, your life and sharing it. And also, God bless and thank you to your professor in college. It's teachers and professors, and I guess community leaders like that really make a huge impact on the world, and sometimes they're not really recognized for it. We all play a role in this crazy thing we call life, and go make it a good day. God bless. Take care. I'm Bobby Stegall. Good night.